Hello, boys and girls. I'm so excited to be here with you again today. Last week in our story, we talked about Moses and how Moses was going to bring the people of Egypt, save them from the Egyptians who were keeping them as slaves. And God sent all of these signs to them to do them. And God ultimately changed Pharaoh's heart and brought them out. So let's go ahead and read our story today called God Makes a Way from Moses and the Red Sea. This story is found in Exodus chapter 14 and 15. Moses and God's people escaped out of Egypt and into the wilderness. They didn't know the way, but God knew the way, and he would show them. I will bring you to a new home, a special land, God promised them. I will look after you. I am with you. God sent a big cloud for them to follow, a pillar of smoke reaching up to the sky. It moved in front of them as they walked and shaded them from the blazing heat of the day. And when it was time to rest, it stopped. All through the cold desert nights, it kept them warm, glowing like a fire. So you see the cloud and the fire? That was God being with his people. God led his people through the desert to the edge of the great sea. They were wondering how to cross it when suddenly they heard a terrible thundering and pounding. It sounded almost like horses' hooves. They shaded their eyes to look back and screamed. It was Pharaoh and his army were coming to get them. Pharaoh had changed his mind again. "Get my slaves back," he screeched and charged out into the desert after them with 600 of his fastest horsemen and every single chariot in Egypt. Do you see them? They're coming after the Israelites. What were God's people going to do? In front of them was a great big sea. It was so big, there was no way around it. There was no way through it. It was too deep. They didn't have any boats, so they couldn't sail across. And they couldn't swim because it was too far and they would drown. And they couldn't turn back because Pharaoh was chasing them. They could see the flashing swords now, glinting in the baking sun, and dust clouds and chariot after scary chariot surging towards them. So they did the only thing there was left to do. Panic! "We're going to die!" they shrieked. "Don't be afraid," Moses said. "But there's nothing we can do," they screamed. "God knows you can't do anything," Moses said. "God will do it for you. Trust him and watch." "But there's no way out," they cried. "God will make a way." Another minute and it would have been over. But then the strangest thing happened. What do you think is going to happen? God made the pillar of smoke move. It moved behind his people and hid them from the Egyptians. Then God sent a strong east wind to blow all night long. It blew on the water of the big sea. It blew to the left and it blew to the right until it blew into two towering walls of water. And there, right through the middle, the muddy pathway opened up, and God's people walked across on dry land. See the two walls of water that it made? God's people were able to get across on dry land. When the Egyptians tried to follow, the walls of water crashed back down on them and swallowed them up. God's people were safe. They danced and laughed and sang and thanked God. When there had been no way out, God had made a way. Many years later, once again, God was going to make a way where there was no way. From the beginning, God's children had been running from him and hiding. God knew his children could never be happy without him, but they couldn't get back to him by themselves. They were lost. They didn't know the way back. But God knew the way, and one day he would show them. So the chariots were lost in the water, and the people were safe on the other side. God had made a way where there was no way. Boys and girls, God will make a way for you when there is no way. God will always be there for you, always be able to protect you. He will make a way.